Welcome to Say More from Boston Globe Opinion. I'm Anna Kusmer, filling in for Shirley Leung. Boston is a very diverse and dynamic place, but in Hollywood, a certain vibe often dominates. Scrappy, working class, Irish American. I think today's guest was one of the first people to really paint that picture for the public. Dennis Lehane is a writer who grew up in Dorchester and wrote some popular books about the neighborhoods of his childhood. There's Gone Baby Gone, Mystic River, and many more. More recently, he wrote Small Mercies, a book set during busing. His current focus is writing for television. His latest show is called Smoke on Apple TV+. It stars Journey Smollett and Taron Egerton. It's a crime show about arson and fire. Dennis said his fascination with fire goes back to when he was in one.
I was living in a building where the roof caught fire and the fire alarm system was
Here in
out.
Boston?
Yeah, Charles Gate West, overlooking the Charles. And there were these homeless people who lived under the off-ramp for Stowe Drive. And they came in, they rang all our doorbells, and they banged all these trash cans together, and they woke us up, and they saved our lives. And so, yeah, I've stared fire in the face a little bit. And what I said with the show is inspired by real things. Mm-hmm. It's a real arsonist named John Orr who worked in Glendale, California in the 1980s. And I just saw it as a way to look at chaos. Like, I think our country is in a state of just total chaos right now. I think most people are chaotic in general. It's just my personal belief. And so I wanted to look at chaos in every shape and form. And then once we leaned into this idea of fire, the big directive I gave to my team was, I've seen so much crappy fire out there, fake fire.
Yeah.
And I don't want one bit of this to look fake.
That's true. It's like the most common CGI weird kind of thing that you can see on TV.
It's so terrible.
Yeah. So you mentioned chaos, but what other ideas are you tackling with this new show?
Oh, I think there's a lot in there about kind of like white grievance politics. I think there's a lot in there about, there's two arsonists in this show, and they're counterpoints for each other. One of them believes himself to be a victim. The other one truly is a victim of society. That's not making an excuse for him, but it's saying that this guy literally had no chance. The other guy had plenty of chances. He just chose not to take them. And then he wants to sit back and whine about it. So I think that's in there. So we just wanted to look at our country is in such a chaotic state right now. And I don't know that it's going to get out of it. So we really wanted to look at that. We just wanted to look at people who were just really on a collision course with the consequences of hiding who they really are.
Right. And there's a lot in there about sort of being in and out of control and how that affects your behavior.
Yeah.
And how it changes your personality.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, that's all, at the end of the day, that's my favorite thing about what I do. The Greeks called it in extremis. And so it's like in extreme circumstances, people are revealed. Nobody knows who they are until they've been in a really extreme circumstance. You know, I love this phrase that Cormac McCarthy had, which is he believes in fiction of mortal event. And we weren't, I'm not a writer who can write like Henry James about like a crack in the golden bowl. I could care less. You're rich. Go buy another bowl. Like, I'm not going to, I had to read James in college. I'm still angry about it. I want to write about extreme circumstances with people in extremis.
Yeah.
That's what I'm into.
I think one thing that's very Lehanean, if I can say, is humor and dialogue.
Yeah.
There's so much banter on your new show, but I think that's true of your books in general. It's dark, but it's also funny.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about the connection between darkness and humor for you?
Oh, it's just how I grew up. I grew up in I say this to this day. I've never met a comedian half as funny as at least five people I knew growing up.
Okay.
And
in Dorchester.
And my dad was part of a bar culture. He used to bring me into bars all the time and tell my mother we were at a farmer's market so he could sneak in and have a drink on a Saturday. So I grew up listening to people talk and tell stories, and they were always working class stories. And the point of any working class story is I got screwed.
Right.
But I got a little bit of vengeance. Like I keyed his car.
Yeah.
I slept with his sister.
Yeah.
So it's a tragic story. I got screwed.
Yeah.
But it's got a little bit of levity in it because the idea is, I think, in Irish culture, personally, I think Irish culture is and that's where Dorchester and Savin Hill, where I grew up in Southie, that's where we get our sense of humor, is the Irish. And they believe that God is a prankster and we're the joke.
Right.
We're the butt of the joke, And so I think that's something that just goes into my work. And I can't not be funny as much as my stuff is really dark. It's like the funniest thing is when Mystic River was the first book I wrote that doesn't seem to have many jokes in it.
Yep.
But when I read it out loud, people almost look for permission because they start to laugh. The voice is actually very funny.
Yeah.
But it's just, it doesn't, the story is so dark, you got to hear it to laugh.
I always think of Boston humor as like there's a lot of like defense mechanisms and sort of.
Of course.
Like, there's a lot, as you say, it's sort of like a way of processing pain. I think that's so true here. I wonder if I know it's true everywhere, but I think it's particularly true here.
Oh, it's particularly true here. I mean, I'm sorry. I went to school down south, and irony and sarcasm dies at the Mason-Dixon line. I mean, I got so tired of people staring at me like they just didn't. I think I left the South because I got tired of people not getting my jokes.
Right.
Like, no, I was like, no, that's a joke.
One of many things I found really funny about the new series is that one of your main characters is an aspiring crime writer.
Yeah.
But he's a bit of a hack. Is it a spoiler to say that he's a hack?
No, it's not a spoiler.
Okay.
It's not a spoiler. And the real John Orr was an aspiring writer.
Oh, wow. Okay. What do you think separates good crime writing from mediocre crime writing?
No, it's good writing. It's just good writing. It's not crime writing or romance writing or anything. I believe that all writing is just either good writing or not good writing. You have to have depth. You have to have depth of character. You have to have depth of language. You have to have depth of story. There has to be a lot of story there, and I think it has to be honest. Like honest writing can get over some real clunky writing. Like if you feel like you're reading somebody's authentic experience, even if they don't choose maybe the best word, you don't mind. Mm-hmm. But if you feel inauthenticity in what you're reading, I shouldn't speak for anybody else. I know I do. Mm-hmm. I throw the book away. Like, there's no way I'm reading it. There's no way I'm watching the show.
How do you train yourself in that way? Like, make sure that you're staying true and authentic in your own writing. You
train. It's a muscle. And it takes, I don't care what anybody says. The bottom line is it takes 10 years. It takes 10 years to master it. And you just gotta, that doesn't mean that you might not be publishing. I published my first book 8 years in, but I didn't know what I was doing until I wrote my second. Then I was like, oh, okay, phew, okay, I think I got this. And you got to be hungry, and you got to be willing to park your vanity at the door. Vanity has no place. You can have a strong ego about the work, but vanity about the self, if you're there just so people will praise you, like when I go into writers' classes or I teach, and I see somebody who's in the room basically to be praised, leave. Just leave, And that was one of the great training experiences on The Wire, was they had no respect for anybody who needed to be treated with kid gloves. None of us were like that. I mean, I would literally have somebody look at me and say, I don't like that idea. Why? Because it sucks. Oh, okay. Well, thanks a lot. You know, like it was literally like that. Mm-hmm. And so I find that I work almost exclusively with 3 women in my writing teams, and we washed out all the weak people, and they were all guys. They were. And we just got sick of dealing with their egos. I can't deal with your needs, man. I need somebody who can look at, my head writer will look at me now and say, that sucks. And I'll be like, okay, fair enough. Well, and your idea sucks too. But we'll go back and forth with each other. But it's not, you can't be sensitive little, if you're looking for a safe space, a writer's room ain't it. Let me just put it that way.
Well, I'm thinking too that, I mean, I know we're in the era of the anti-hero, but I feel like that's almost its own cliche. But I feel like it's not just that your characters are anti-heroes. It's just that they're really messy people.
They're messy people. How many non-messy people do you know? Because I don't. And that's what I get so tired of it when I read it. The bad guys who are so bad. Right. The good guys who are so good. It's like I'm bored already. I'm bored saying it. And so I know messy people. I know people who do things. One of the things I think is the biggest delusion is that we know why we do things. You'll get to my age, you look back on your life, and the most common thing that you'll say about most of the major decisions you made is, what was I thinking? what was I thinking, for God's sakes? You know, I guess it seemed like a good idea at the time, but it was a terrible idea. We do that. We do things all the time out of instincts, and often those instincts are bad. I think, Taron's character says it near the end of the show. He says, all these things we give different names to. It's just appetite. I'm hungry and I want to eat. And that's it. There's your morality. And I do believe that pretty hard.
More of my conversation with Dennis Lehane after a short break. I want to talk about Boston now.
Yeah. Yay.
So you grew up in Dorchester,
Yep.
Savin Hill?
Yeah, St. Margaret's Parish is a little bit below Savin Hill, but we're Edward Everett Square. Savin Hill is kind of those are our stomping grounds.
Did your upbringing look and sound at all like a Dennis Lehane novel?
Yeah, inside my house did not. Inside my house, the tribute to my actual life is Sean's parents in Mystic River. That's my actual life, except for the fact that his parents aren't immigrants. My parents are immigrants. You went into my house and you felt safe, and you felt like you weren't in 1980s Boston. You felt like you were in 1940s Ireland. And that was the vibe. And so I liked that a lot, and I felt safe in my home, without a doubt. The streets outside were kind of rough. And I was 9 when busing happened. I mean, there was just a lot of violence in the streets, a lot of racial violence, a lot of Boston was a dirtier town back then. It was, it wasn't like now. I mean, now it's like I can't even write a crime novel in Boston anymore because nothing ever happens here, What'd you have? 1 murder last year? It was ridiculous. It's like, so.
Well, Mayor Wu is proud, but
Yeah,
maybe you don't like it.
No, I love it. I love it. It's a great city. I'd love to have raised my kids here.
Yeah.
But it's I'm a homer. I just love it, warts and all.
I can imagine that especially living in California, I imagine that a lot of your work is sort of based, like kind of rooted in a lot of your nostalgia for the streets of your childhood.
Yeah. I think it's also it's a vanished world. That world doesn't exist anymore. And so I write a lot about that with great love and a jaundiced viewpoint sometimes. It's like people say, well, aren't people angry about your writing? For the most part, no. Because I think I do warts and all.
Yeah.
And so, you'll see the warts. You also see all the wonderful things about it. I loved growing up in a working class town. I loved the feeling of it. I loved the loyalty. I loved the jokes. I loved the sense of family bonds. I loved all of it. And so I don't find that in a lot of the rest of the world.
You really capture the character of a certain era of Boston, particularly, those neighborhoods where you grew up. And a lot of times people, I think, again, in a cliche way, will say that books are like a love letter to a place.
Yes.
I'm not sure your Boston-based stories are a love letter per se, but because they're so open about the ugly side of people here. There's so much abuse, tribalism, prejudice in your books.
Yeah.
How do you go about capturing, all the different sides of a place?
Boston is unlike any other place. It just is. And it's a little bit like Chicago. It's a little bit like Philly, but it's its own place. And people are all, and I say this as with pride, as somebody, we're all just at least a can short of a 6-pack. We're all just a little bit off, And I don't know if that's the Irish influence or what, but I was in Miami for graduate school, and I remember worrying that I was losing the Boston voice, right? So I went back home, and I ran into a guy, and I said, "How you doing?" And he said, he'd been kind of a brawler, and he said, "Oh, I'm good. I got stabbed a couple of months ago, but I was like, what happened?" He tells me the story. He says, "I was in Sean's in Faneuil Hall, and I got into beef with this guy, and anyway, he stabbed me, and he said, I don't know what you've heard, but it can really take the fight out of a guy." And I thought, that's it. That's the voice. That right there. I don't know what you've heard. Like, you may have heard that, getting stabbed is kind of like a hot stone massage, and then the incredible understatement. Not I was praying for my God, not it was hurt so much. No, it kind of takes the fight out of a guy. Like, that's the Boston I know. And that's the Boston that is always in my head when I write. And I don't think it's a coincidence that my personal favorites, that I think my 3 best books are written in that voice. There's only 3 books I wrote specifically in that narrative voice. And it's Mystic River and The Drop in Small Mercies.
Hmm.
And they're all the same narrator. It's the same person telling the story. And it's a guy in a bar. That's the way I've always pictured him. He's a guy in a bar and he has a really cool story to tell you. And he's not sentimental and he's kind of funny. And he'll take the wind out of you if you're remotely pretentious. And that's that voice. And I love writing in that voice, but I've only done it 3 times.
Yeah, I want to talk about Small Mercies.
Yeah.
After a long hiatus from book writing, you released Small Mercies in 2023. It takes place during the Boston busing crisis. What motivated you to set this book during busing and take on these themes, racism, tribalism, in that way?
I think it's the story of the city. I don't think you can understand the city until you understand busing and what happened. And I grew up in it. And
How old were you?
I was 9. And I saw it firsthand. Like I was right. My neighborhood bordered South Boston.
Right.
So I wasn't from Southie. And I made the character Bobby Coyne in the book not from Southie as well. So that I could very clearly say, hey, guys, I'm an outsider looking in because Southie is extremely protective of that. But at the same time, I had a front row seat for it. And I saw KKK graffiti. I saw kill all the N-word graffiti. I'm 9 years old. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? You're 9. You're supposed to be a child. And I feel like after that, I wasn't, and I turned 9. I was eight that summer when it all started. And so I had a lot of anger built up in me because the one weird thing was, and I don't say this with any pride or anything, I just wasn't a racist. And I grew up with racism everywhere. I mean, it was everywhere. It was in my house. It was out on the streets. It was in my friends' houses. It was everywhere. And I just didn't have it. It was just, I don't know why. I mean, I probably should have, but I was exposed to a lot. But I think it's because my dad constantly would talk against it. He would just say, nobody, I don't care if you're black, white, green, or purple. You have a place at this table. And I loved my dad. And I took all my cues of what to be a man from my father. And so I think I took that from my dad. But what I also saw on the other side was I very much had a very adult concept very early on. And I believe this to this day, that it is, why are we fighting each other? We're both poor.
Yeah.
Why the hell are we throwing rocks at each other? Why are we fighting each other in the streets? Because it's in the best interest of the people who actually control this country to keep the poor fighting amongst themselves. Because if the poor ever figured it out, they could do some damage. And so it's very important that the poor never realize that they have much more in common than they have in differences. And that's why you always see at times of economic disparity or economic insecurity, you will always, and I don't care if it's Nazi Germany or it's America, you will always see people playing the race card. Always.
Do you feel like those early memories of feeling so alienated, the kind of emotional imprint that had on you, how did writing about it help you process, what you witnessed?
I think that's what it was. I think I felt like a spy in an enemy camp, because I had to listen to all this. It wasn't like you could stand up and say, no, don't use the N-word. Like that's just, you got a beat down, I didn't say, I wasn't picking any fights essentially. And so I think I began to bifurcate as a person. And that turned me into a writer. I would not be the writer I am. The 2 things I think that are most important in my maturation as a writer are coming from Dorchester and busing.
Did writing the book make you realize anything that you hadn't realized before?
Yeah, I finally realized why I was so angry. I'd been walking around my entire life with this pit of kind of rage in me. And it's very hard to get through, but when you get there, it comes out. And I was like, why? I had great parents. I was never abused. I don't have any traumatic stories from my childhood. You know what I mean? Like, that's what puts rage in people. Oh, finally, as I'm writing the book, it's all pouring out of me. And I was like, you're pissed off about that. That summer.
What you were exposed to.
Yeah, at 9.
Saw.
It's not fair. And I looked at my own kids, and one of them was around 9 when I started writing the book. And I was like, man, if anybody exposed her to this, I mean, it would be criminal. I would consider it criminal. You're taking a kid's innocence away. And so I'm one of one kid in this city at that time. How many other kids never got it? How many other kids never had a childhood in some ways? Because they were watching the adults who they were supposed to look up to throwing bricks at buses with kids in them. I mean, what are you supposed to do with that?
Yeah. So I don't need to tell you this, but there's this national stereotype about Boston. People think of movies like The Departed, Affleck movies, obviously your
Yeah,
books and movies as well, that just laid the foundation for how people see the city in popular culture.
sure.
Irish American, insular, working class, sassy, violent. Do you take some credit for sort of how much Boston is seen that way in popular culture?
Oh yeah, no, I can't wash my hands of that one. That's on me.
Okay.
Uh, we even shot The Drop in Brooklyn because we just didn't want to do one more Irish gangster story set in Boston, so we moved it to Brooklyn. Um, it's yeah, it's on me. I mean,
How do you feel about sort of being so responsible for how the rest of the country and the world, frankly, see Boston?
well, it's not just on me. I mean, it's on The Departed and Friends of Eddie Coyle.
But I think of them as your
I know. Here's
your
the crazy thing:
successors.
if there's a book or a movie, and there's a bar in it, and it happens in Boston, and there's a gun, people think I wrote it. It doesn't matter. The number of people who have come up to me and thanked me for writing The Departed or The Town it's endless. I'm talking Bostonians. I've gotten fan letters for The Departed. I'm not kidding.
Frame it.
I got a fan letter from a very famous person for The Departed, thanking me for how much they love
That's
The
really
Departed.
good.
So yeah, I just look. I can only tell what I tell. I was watching this documentary on Scorsese and Martin Scorsese, and he's a big idol of mine. And I was watching where somebody said, "Well, how do you feel about people who say you use too much music in your movies?" And he said that I use too much music, and I probably move the camera too much. Like, I can live with it. Like what I did, what I set out to do when I set out to be a writer, I have far exceeded that, and so I am just grateful as hell.
In LA, are you basically Boston guy? Like you get a call whenever anyone is setting anything in Boston so they don't look like an idiot?
No, sometimes I get a little offended. Like, I'm like, wait a minute.
I'm right here.
You guys did The Equalizer with my favorite actor. You did set it in Boston, and nobody called me? I was a little bit offended. Like, what the hell? No, they do Boston without me plenty of times.
Do you have any advice for capturing the Boston accent? It's often endlessly talked about bad Boston accents in movies.
It's so bad.
It's so bad.
So bad.
What are the common pitfalls?
The biggest one is dragging.
Hmm.
It's not an elongation. It's an amputation. People don't say never. They say never. They say forever. It comes out fast. And it's when you drag it that you get into the trouble. And so I think, Paul Walter Hauser, who did Blackbird with me, he went and did a Matt Damon movie with Matt Damon and Casey Affleck that was on Apple, I think a year ago. I'm forgetting the name of it. But he was like, should I do the accent? And I'm like, if anybody gives you a look, stop.
Right.
I
think a lot of people would benefit from that advice.
Yeah.
Who do you think's done it best? Non-Bostonians?
Non-Bostonians?
Who have done the Boston accent?
I'll tell you who I think is the best, and nobody's seen the movie, is the entire cast of Monument Ave.
Okay, haven't seen it.
Which is a movie from the 90s with Ted Demme made it with Dennis Leary. And it's really wonderful. It's this very dark crime drama. And I think Leary must have been coaching everybody because Billy Crudup's great, Famke Johnson's great. I mean, people who are not Bostonians crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. And so that one sticks out to me. The worst of them is Perfect Storm, probably. I think that accent, Diane Lane's accent in that is so bad that it affects Mark Wahlberg's accent, and he grew up here.
Right.
That's pretty bad.
It's a bit of a domino effect.
Yeah. There was one Mel Gibson made that nobody remembers called Edge of Darkness.
Edge of Darkness.
And I think they called it Edge of Darkness just so they could say Darkness. And and that was really bad too. I tell actors, call the Land Rover dealership in Norwood, because there's a woman who answers the phone there. It's a phone recording. And she says, at least she used to be 10 years ago. I loved it. You would call up and she would say, "Thank you for calling Land Rover of Norwood." And you're like, that's all you need, man. That's it. Land Rover of Norwood. So
They're probably like, we get a lot of calls. We don't know why.
we don't know
a
why.
lot of calls from California.
From California. Yeah.
That's really good. So in Boston, we have a poet laureate, but I would like to name you our crime writer laureate.
Oh,
Do
you're
you
so
accept?
kind. I accept. Thank you. Okay, so I'll be the writer laureate, the novelist laureate, the whatever laureate, crime
We're honored.
fiction
Yeah.
laureate.
Laureate.
Sounds good. Laureate.
Yeah, there's also the adding the R's where they shouldn't be. That's important.
Sheeler.
Anner. I'm Anner.
You're Anner. Yeah, it's good stuff, kid.
We're honored.
Good stuff.
Dennis Lehane is a writer of both books and television. His newest series is called Smoke on Apple TV+. He is also the unofficial crime writer laureate of Boston, according to me. Thank you so much, Dennis, for being here. It's an honor to talk to you.
Thanks, Anna.
Say More is a production of the Boston Globe. Today's episode was produced by me with help from Jasmine Aguilera. Our editor is Jim Dow. Our engineer is Uzair Ahmed. If you like the show, please follow us and leave a review. You can email us at saymore@globe.com. I'm Anna Kusmer. Thanks for listening.